So this past weekend, I went to SeaWorld for the first time in over a decade. When I was younger, I thought it was magical. I saw animals I thought only existed in books and movies. Walking around and seeing all of these exotic animals inspired me to become a marine biologist like most other kids. And even though this dream didn't stay for long, the impact changed my perspective. It inspired a love for animals, and now I literally cannot hurt a fly or an ant without having some dilemma. In my most recent visit to SeaWorld, I was shocked. I was shocked by the cruelty of places like SeaWorld. The aquariums seemed really small. A ton of different species and fish and birds were all crammed together into one tank. What really shocked me was the penguin exhibit. 7 different species of penguins were in a cage that was roughly 20 feet long and 10 feet deep. My bedroom is bigger than the exhibit that they were in. And I looked at the cage itself, and it was a container. The roof was painted blue to mimic the sky, and there were 3 spaced out holes in the exhibit in the ceiling, and shaved ice would drop from it. It felt so artificial. It felt fake, and it left me feeling really uneasy. I felt my perspective crumbling, and I was extremely disappointed. Upon doing some research, unsurprisingly, this has been a topic of debate for well over 20 years. Research has been done showing that zoos are harmful to the animals physically and psychologically for a variety of reasons. In Visitors' Effects on the Welfare of Animals in the Zoo, Davy writes, "The mere act of someone being present, watching them, changes the animal's behavior. So multiply one pair of eyes by 100 and it causes further behavioral, even physiological changes." I mean, how would you feel if your bedroom was just purely made of glass and everyone was just staring at you? 200 eyes looking at you while you're just living. It's very Truman Show-esque. And this effect is known as, in the zoo management industry, this is known as the visitor effect. Zoos are quick to discuss physical needs but fail to address the psychological effects of captivity. Pierce and Beckhoff write in their journal article, A Post-Zoo Future, instead of freedom and captivity, they focused attention on what are called welfare improvements. However, these welfare improvements attempt to address these psychological stressors by adding enrichments, such as plastic toys or food puzzles to animal cages. In what world would these plastic toys be enough to entertain them? And some people may think, I give toys to my dog. How is that any different? But the difference is these animals aren't domesticated like dogs are. Dogs are not in captivity like exotic animals in the zoo are. Dogs have evolved over hundreds of years to be domesticated. The biological species of a dog is significantly different than their cousins, the wolf. Every animal at the zoo has not gone through this process. According to Pierce and Beckhoff, captivity causes long-term psychological trauma to the animals. Captivity changes immune function, brain morphology, reproductive behaviors, circadian rhythms, and more. Earlier, I mentioned that zoos look after their physical well-being, but what I failed to mention is that they're cared for if they intend to keep the animals. Most zoos participate in management euthanasia. If the animals are at capacity or they don't exhibit target characteristics, they're essentially killed. An argument that most pro-zoo goers make is that zoos are fighting for conservation of these animals. I would like for you to consider, why are these animals dying in the first place? Usually it's from environmental factors, disease, and poaching. Taking animals out of their environment and putting them in captivity doesn't remove the suffering. It only changes the cause. So what is the solution? Pierce and Beckhoff, who wrote A Post-Zoo Future, they suggested to create innovative exhibits that replace animals with technology. To me, that sounds way more engaging. Imagine walking through a jungle and being surrounded by monkeys. Doesn't that sound more fun than looking at a monkey through some glass? Sometimes they just ignore you. And it would be so cool to walk through an exhibit and actually be able to interact with them. Based off of research and how they interact with their environment, you could recreate that without taking them out of their environment. And they could even use the money from the profits of the zoo to push conservation efforts by going to the root of the cause. So if it's an environmental factor, put the money towards helping their environment. I would like to end with a quote from Pierce and Beckhoff. A better life is not necessarily a good life.